Hello. Want to watch a video? Me too. Welcome to the first episode of Critical Bit, which is the co-star of my Critical Hit series over here on Renewed Horizon. Whereas Critical Hit is meant to be a deep dive into video game stories and character development, examining like the morality and the meaning behind all the different story beats within the game. They're also much longer videos, but more importantly, they're about the lessons we can learn from a story. Critical Bit is very precise. In this series, I would like to examine just one aspect of a story and how it allows the game developer to engage the audience in the story, to immerse them in such a way that it tells a good story rather than examining the specific details of that story and how it applies to us. So today we're going to look at a game that does a great job of capturing the player's attention throughout the whole story. This is something that all games have to do, whether it's in, like, say for instance, Horizon Zero Dawn. Every time you discover a new robot dinosaur, it's a very thrilling thing. Or perhaps in Titanfall 2, where you have that moment of separation for your robot buddy, and it creates this tension inside of you where you want to progress the story to see if you get reunited. To clarify, I'm not talking about keeping a community's interest. That would be a game like, say, Apex Legends or Fortnite, where there has to be some sort of loot system to keep players constantly engaged in the environment ecosystem. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about you have a story in your game and you want to get the player from point A to point B. And so what I want to do is look at games that do a really good job of keeping you constantly engaged, so that way you actually make that final trip from A to B rather than starting on A and just dropping off because it got kind of boring. The game we're going to be talking about for today's video is Control, which won IGN's Game of the Year back in 2019.
What are your thoughts on me serving as director?
Well, I couldn't be more excited.
Control is about a woman named Jessie Faden. Jessie is on a quest to be reunited with her brother Dylan. Now, in an attempt to find him, she happens to stumble across the Federal Bureau of Control, which is a top secret government agency in charge of investigating all the paranatural, that is paranormal and supernatural, they just combine it, paranatural. They're in charge of investigating all the paranatural activity in the United States. Oh, and one thing, now she is the director of the Bureau, and there are these creepy floating guys everywhere corrupting the transforming building while sticky notes are infesting the office. Yeah, so talk about a rough first day on the job. Control's story is awesome, and even though it's not as emotionally gripping as Spider-Man was for me, or maybe as thought-provoking of What Remains of Edith Finch, I still love it and you should totally give it a playthrough. Control creates constant intrigue by utilizing what I like to call the 3 R's. These of course stand for redefining expectations, rewarding creative problem solving, and previewing future areas of interest. Wait, that's only 2. Just 1 second. I'm sure this will work. Number 1, redefining expectations. This is arguably Control's greatest asset. I discovered this right from the get-go. When I walked up some steps right at the beginning of the game, met a dude, we chatted, had some fun, and then I decided to backtrack, as I often do, because I play games weird. And when I got back to the staircase, it was no longer there. It had been replaced by a wall, and I was no longer able to backtrack. The building had transformed on me. And then there was that time where I put some coins in a jukebox, and I was transported to a different dimension. And let's not forget that other time when I gained the ability to levitate from a floating TV. Control is full of these oddities, so full in fact that the player has to erase everything they know about what they would expect to be normal and just accept these oddities as the new normal. So you're trying to tell me that you guys only have one janitor to clean up an at least 5-story building? It's kind of hard to tell because it keeps shifting, but thousands of square feet? Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that I can still talk to the dead former director through this 1970s telephone right here? You're 2 for 2, buddy. And have you seen this rubber duck that keeps teleporting all over the place? I swear it was there earlier. Actually, that one's new. I'm just kidding. Yes. Once the player's mindset has been readjusted, control basically becomes a treasure trove of secrets to uncover. The player craves whatever's going to happen next because he knows that it's going to be different than what he would normally expect. It's like discovering the wonders of the world for the first time. Pure imagination that you can explore to your heart's content. If you want to, there's a ton of lore. You can find all these documents lying around of stories of paranatural activity that has happened in the US. Or check out the ashtray maze. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. You might even find a music video by a scientist dude that is priceless. Trust me, it's amazing. Just go look up Dynamite Control on YouTube and it'll change your life. And yes, there's a music video playing on a projector in the game. And eventually you might even spend way too much time knocking paintings off walls just in case there happens to be something behind them. All these wacky and wonderful bits aren't even directly related to Jesse looking for Dylan, but they're still amazing. These elements are very necessary in order to create a story that feels alive and colorful. Defying expectations is instantly what separates Control from other games. I try to do this with my videos a lot too, you know. Like this whole time you thought I've been recording a voiceover in a room with just a blank white wall behind me, when in reality I'm actually recording outside and it's raining, even though you can't see it. Since we're on the topic of redefining expectations, let's go next to number 3, which is previewing future areas of interest. This is a pretty short point, but it's still noteworthy. Control does a great job of foreshadowing. Now, I don't mean it does stuff like early in the game there is this big thunderstorm in this one specific area, and then later on in the game you come back there and oh, some tragic event happened right there. You know, it's not quite the same as like what we would expect from literature. Although I'm sure there might be some of that in this game. In this case, it's about showing players areas of interest, but not allowing them access to it. It's sort of like a tease for later on in the game. You know that room full of sticky notes I mentioned earlier? I had to wait until I had a clearance level high enough to even have access to that room, even though I could see the whole time that it was clearly covered in sticky notes and it was the coolest thing ever and I wanted to know what was going on. Wait a second, I'm the director, okay? You can't tell me where I can and can't go, game. You know what's even worse is that sticky note room was in the main hub of the game. Like I said, I already saw it so many times, but then I had to keep coming back to the same area and looking at it. And I didn't even care about the rest of the game. I didn't even care about Dylan. I just want to know what was in the sticky notes room. Spoilers, it's a bunch of sticky notes. I mean, the clearance stores are a pretty clear example, but there are a couple others. Like there's this mold that when you touch it, it like burns you. Or there's a wall in a room that is kind of built up of all these blocks and you can see there's this bright red light glowing through it. But anytime you try and get near it, it just hurts you. So it's kind of like, eventually I will know what's going on over there. And this is actually fairly common in a lot of games. Like Metroid is very popular and you have to unlock certain new abilities before you can go to these other areas. The game is about constant backtracking to former areas, but now you can get a little further in them because you have a new ability. And eventually you'll, as you travel along, be stopped somewhere else, and then now you gotta go somewhere else again, come back and forth, something like that. But yeah, Control just does a really nice job of it. It gives the player motivation to keep progressing through the story because they know, even if I can't go to this place right now, I will eventually be able to go here, if I keep playing. And finally, let's go with the second R, which is rewarding creative problem solving. Control gives the player a lot of control over how to tackle its various obstacles. Your gun is very versatile with all of its various forms. You can unlock new abilities. You can modify these even more as you progress through the game. So how you fight in combat is up to you. You can go full Rambo, just start blasting everyone, or be more strategic and hide behind a wall of debris, or my personal favorite, just start chucking chairs of enemies. Essentially, it gives you the tools as a player to progress through the story, but how you do so is completely dependent on your own creativity. Control has realistic physics and collision on most objects. Other games without those two dynamics wouldn't even let you interact with most objects, but Control allows you to try and oftentimes fail in your ideas, but sometimes succeed if you have enough patience. So for instance, I can see this ledge up here, and I know that there's some sort of secret up on this ledge. However, at this point in the game, I don't have the levitate ability. I knew from seeing like trailers and stuff that levitate was an ability in the game, so eventually I could come back here with the ability and get up there easy peasy. However, then I noticed this ladder sitting right over here, and I thought to myself, I bet I can climb up that ladder. So I did. I tried jumping up the ladder and eventually made it onto a box and made it onto the ledge, all without the levitate ability. It took me maybe a couple dozen attempts, but I did eventually make it up there. Now, I'm not the developer of this game, so I have no idea if that was even meant to be a possible solution for getting up to this ledge. But I do know that Remedy Studios put an awful lot of time into creating a world that would even give you that option, so I wouldn't be surprised. They sure as heck know that you can get pretty wild with how you manipulate the game, so who knows? My favorite example of problem solving is in this one particular room. At this point in the game, I had the levitate ability, and I could see up through this little light thingamabob that there's clearly a crate on top of this little nook here. However, the levitate ability only lets you fly so high, and it's not high enough to actually get up there. So I begin problem solving. So I spent probably about an hour thinking it through and experimenting. I jumped on this vault door and then levitated, but then that wound up just getting my head stuck on the ceiling. I could stand on the speakers and try to levitate from there, but that didn't work either. I even tried levitating off of this flag, which was very difficult to stand on, and that didn't work either. Nothing I could think of worked. At this point, I was beginning to get slightly frustrated, and so I started just chucking objects around the room. One of these objects was a yellow refrigerator. I think it was a refrigerator. A yellow refrigerator that I began chucking up at the crate. Well, lo and behold, on one set attempt, the crate got stuck. It became wedged between the wall and the pillar. Now, unfortunately, the position it was in originally didn't actually help me anymore, but I kept trying, and after about 5 more minutes, I got it wedged in a spot that was low enough for me to levitate up to and then hop onto the ledge and open the crate. Since then, I've looked it up online and tried to see how other people managed to get up there. I think the design method is to float up to this guy's head and stand on him and then float up from there. But again, in this game, you have the freedom to explore and solve problems on your own, in your own creativity. Basically, the launch ability is broken and you are a god and you can do whatever you want with it. I'm mostly kidding, but also there are some speedrunners who use the ability to launch themselves out of bounds, and it's pretty wicked. Now that is one way to problem solve to finish a story. In their case, as fast as possible. And all this sounds really nice and all, but in the end, the main point of it is to make you feel even more connected to Jesse. Like, you are Jesse. You have the ability to choose how you will take an engagement or solve a puzzle. This is Jesse trying to figure it out. And there's kind of this bond between you and your avatar or protagonist, whatever you want to call it. You and Jesse are forming this bond because of this freedom that the game gives you. The more you feel like and relate to the main character that you play as, the more engaged you will be in the story. When something wild happens to Jessie and she comments about it, you start thinking, yeah, I was just about to say the same thing.
Can you describe your experience inside Agent Hardy?
This story isn't just about Jesse anymore. It's your story, and it's largely due to the fact that the game has given you so much freedom and to explore. Overall, the main reason why Control is such a great game is because it gives you so much freedom as a player. Like, it respects your time. For those who just care about the story and want to see what happens with Jessie and her brother, you can just blaze right through. But if you're like me and you're so intrigued by a world that looks and feels similar to our own yet is somehow so different, then you'll probably spend a lot of time just wandering around, exploring, and learning more about the environment that you're playing through. If you really love how the combat feels, then go check out that jukebox I mentioned earlier. Or there are like 3 DLC now that I haven't even played yet, but I really want to because I hear they're pretty good. Basically, it doesn't matter if you only spend like 10 hours playing through it or 25 hours playing through it. It's going to be an engaging experience either way. To clarify, I don't think this story is for everyone. It might get a little too weird and crazy for a lot of people, or they'll just think it's stupid or some jazz like that.
Ringing so loud I can't hear the voice I'm straining to understand. Why don't I pick up?
But I really wish that more games and more stories would try this. Why not try and blow somebody's mind in the wackiest way possible?
Since little Topher is taking a trip with his father into the world outside our wonderful bureau, I think it's a good time to talk about secrets.
I was constantly so excited to see what was next around the bend and was never disappointed. I really hope you give this game a shot. That's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a like if you do, and let me know down in the comments below if you like this shorter format of the Critical Hit videos. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I do a lot of stuff connected to storytelling, but I also have a podcast and even a Twitch stream, so who knows what you might find around here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.